Okay. How to rebuild your life after emotional destruction. 8th house, Aquarius, Saturn edition. First off, that type of placement, having that placement is real interesting. Like, it does save you from a good bit of stuff, but I also feel like it brings the things that it's also saving you from. I don't know, that's how I feel about Saturn. Like, having this is coming from somebody like post Saturn return. So for me, it's like when people are like, Saturn rewards hard work, sometimes, like, this is just one thought I have about it. I'm not saying like it's true or not, but this is just how I feel, especially interacting with Saturn ruled people, Saturn ruled things. It's not necessary. Sometimes I don't feel like Saturn is necessarily rewarding me. Sometimes I feel like Saturn slows things down that were already on their way to me, and then tries to get in front and be like, look at what I'm giving you. I'm like, you're not giving me anything. That was already mine. But maybe that's just me being cocky. But yeah, that's how I feel about Saturn sometimes. But I am completely more mature in certain aspects when it comes to things, because I'm like, I kind of have to be like in the pursuit of building. Saturn in the 8th house, Aquarius, Saturn in the 8th house things. I have to have a certain type of just emotional state, physical state. And the weird thing about it, especially post Saturn return with that type of placement, it's such a balancing act. To me, it's like the very yes, if, but, and so type of placement, like real double speaky placement. Like, that's just what it feels like. Not saying like I feel like I have those type of qualities, but I feel like I go through those type of situations to get certain type of rewards, if that makes sense. Maybe that's the thing, the go, the get. Anyway, let's say emotional exile you go through after your worlds implode. Yeah, it was a deep emotional exiling period for myself. It was 100% necessary for me, because I had to assess what was mine and what was other people's in all aspects. And the reason why it's important for you to do that, especially with this type of placement, you have to really make sure that there is an equal amount of distance between you and your community. But you also need to make sure that you're even in the right community, right? You have to make sure that you are in the right space. And I think the reason why, because there's also reassemble your identity in the identity reassembling after your emotional world implodes. It's almost like you have to make sure that you are in a aligned community, because the work that you do individually, you are going to pour an aspect of that into the community, and you don't want to pour it into the community that doesn't necessarily respect the balance of you working on yourself. So, and I'm thinking, sometimes they say how Aquarius can be picky and they go through these long periods of isolation, and I'm understanding that, but sometimes I feel like too, having this Aquarius placement and dealing with Aquarius sun, sometimes I feel like they might feel like they're misunderstood, but I don't necessarily think that they know what they've got going on in that present moment either, because of that community. It's like, well, what do you need? I'm like, well, don't worry about what I need, kind of like avoiding dealing with the personal self and replacing that with like caring about a group. It's kind of But yeah, emotional exile you go through after your world implodes. It's a hard breakdown. It's a hard breakdown. Some people say they have good Saturn returns. And I'm not saying that's not true, but I feel like that's a very small period, because I don't think people realize like how long that Saturn return is. Like you have the actual like transit itself, but you also have that aftershock. Like it's like I don't really want to exclude like the cleanup work and the repositioning of yourself that you have to do that comes with your Saturn return. And that's repositioning yourself anyway, emotionally, financially, whatever those themes are for that Saturn. So it's a lot of, finally dropping that stuff off of you and things that you've picked up from a group, in any type of groups. Your family, that's a group. The people at your work, an additional group, And then you can see there's always overlap. Of course, there's always nuance. If certain people from certain groups start to be in certain spaces, like, of course, the nuance, but work, group, hobby, group, biz, group, studying, group, all these different type of groups. So it's like you pick up things. Some things are not so detrimental. Other things are. Some of the things that you experience in one group, you might experience in another. So maybe that's not a lot of the work, but there is this emotional breakdown, like before you get to the detachment, what are you trying to move away from? Why are you trying to move away from it? Why were you even around it to move away from it? Like just this, for me, it was just like just chewing on all of this stuff, like all of my life that needed to be chewed on, like up until my Saturn return point. But what actually works when you're trying to reassemble your identity. So what actually works, or did work for me, I had to stop. It's not that I rush to get through emotional things. I think for me, with this Saturn return, I'm like, I don't want to keep dealing with shit logically. Like, I don't want to keep doing that, and feeling like I have to be responsible for myself and other people in a moment where we might not be seeing eye to eye. And so one thing that worked for me was just letting myself work through something and not worry about necessarily that other person in the midst of that. Well, I can't think this about them because, or I can't write this, or I can't say this out loud. Like, that's silly. Or it felt silly at the time. What actually works? Sometimes I hear about Aquarius being picky, and in some instances I do get it. Some spaces there you do have to be 100% picky. But I think there's a way. I think that there's. Right now we're in a weird ass time where we're adding nuance to words instead of just focusing on the generalization of that word, like the general definition of that word. Not what it might mean like in certain situations, but like what it is, And so like picky, I feel like people are just latching on to anything that can make anything feel hierarchical. Group. That's what I'm talking about. It's so funny. Like having that Saturn in Aquarius is so interesting. Like watching group dynamics and hierarchy and all of this, and it's just so funny because Aquarius loves power. They love power. They love being next to powerful things, powerful people. Like that shit Saturn's big ass loves some fucking power, some status. Nothing says power like status. And it's so interesting because it's like with Aquarius, it's like there's this, you have to be, I don't know, I don't want to say sneaky because I hate that word, but it's just like you have to be really stealth. Like I know some Aquarius I see, they're like, keep your head on a swivel, but that's so paranoid, right? Like I know, like sometimes I can see scorpionic themes on Aquarius. You know, they love power, they love nice shit, you know, but they're also fucking paranoid. They're scary, you know, of certain things. And so having that placement when it came time to reassembling myself, I didn't want to reassemble myself with fear. And part of not reassembling myself with fear was not building or breaking down with hate. Like, I don't want to hate myself through any growth. You know, I don't want to be hard on myself through anything that I'm processing, you know, past wise. Because I feel like with the Saturn return, it's just like you have to, like, to look at patterns, you got to keep track. Keeping track looks different. Some people journal. Some people put hella photos and videos on their social media. Some people have a blog. Some people go out. Some people are just outside. So you have to actually talk to other people to hear about their legendary. But yeah, gotta work through it. How to spot your first real move after devastation. How did I spot my first real move after devastation? Having that 8th house, Aquarius, Saturn, the real move, it wasn't necessarily something, I guess it was like this all-encompassing moment of like certain situations that I might have, not emotionally lash out, but that I might jump to defend myself quite aggressively, which I don't mind defending myself. I'm not going to take that away from me. But sometimes I don't necessarily need to defend myself all the time in certain situations that I just feel like are silly, you know, in the grand scheme of things. Because sometimes when you're assessing a pattern, you can assess a pattern like, we always argue about the same thing, and it's just like, okay, what's going on when you guys are about to argue? What am I eating? What am I wearing? What time of day is it? What's the moon doing? What day of the week is it? Like, I'm trying to figure out, like, what's going on. And I think that's that logical side of Aquarius, of Saturn, you know, like emotional, like they see the emotion, but they're not necessarily like gonna chomp on that bit right now. You know, I feel like that's how Saturnians deal with their emotions. Like, it's like their emotions is like that, you know, that one meme of the really short guy dressed in like the detective trench coat and the ciggy's lit, but it's dark and all you see is the ciggy and its outline. That's Aquarius and Capricorn's like emotions, just sitting in a cut. Like, they're not saying that it's not there, like he there, but we ain't gonna talk to that guy right now. But that's what it felt like for me. Like, it felt like more not, it felt really peaceful. Like all my not necessarily conflict, but like just letting people say things that I might not want to hear because that's our relationship. You know, it's just like, if they have known me for a period of time, I'm like, okay, maybe they do get to say so. You know, maybe they do get a little chip in the bucky. You know, maybe I can't say no. They can't have a say. You know, that's kind of bogus. So yeah, it looked like peace. That's how you know when like some shit don't bother you, like it's peaceful. Like when you can go to places that used to fuck with you, when you can look at pictures that used to fuck with you, any of that. When you're like just over it, where you're just like, you see what happened, why it happened, but it's just like, that's not right now. That's not right here. That's how you know it's like, wow, I'm grown. I done grew up, because it just really doesn't bother me like that anymore. Like, yeah, it sucks. Like, no, I don't want it back, you know, because that's another thing. Like, sometimes in that piece, it's like, just because you might have, you know, that thing come back and you're like, wow, I'm in a good mood and I choose forgiveness. It's like, yeah, you can 100% like forgive, but don't forget, love bug, why we got here. That patterns exist. Things don't change. Like, yeah, you might be different, but you also are a version of yourself when you get around this thing. These people do this, habit, this. You're saying these things, you become this product. Overall, building your life after emotional destruction, like, is it... You're gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater at some point. It's gonna be a big whoops, like, damn, I did the most. But hell, at one point you was doing the least. You was letting in everybody in the club. Now you understand you got a guest list, you getting tables and chairs and stuff, you know. Ain't nothing wrong with a little house party. Somebody always be getting busy in there, you know. But you have to be patient with yourself. Aquarius and Capricorn, Saturn, time. Also, a little tangent. I always think about one thing, just one little tip, if I could say. As I progress with like looking at astrology and the signs and the planets that rule them and the ecosystem that we have called the galaxy, I always look at them in pairs. Look at the signs in pairs. So right now I'm mentioning Aquarius. You can look at the pair Aquarius and Capricorn, being that they're both their lord planet is Saturn, or you can look at Aquarius and Leo. Because I love looking at I have loved looking at my, you know, Saturn return experience with my, you know, with Leo and where that falls in my chart, you know, because it just explains so much. Aquarius wants the same thing Leo wants out loud. It just looks so different. It's just it's same, but it's different, but it's the same vibe. Like, they move with the same type of stealth and cunningness. Very cunning axis for me. But what I was going to say about Capricorn, time, Cancer, space and time. That's what Cancer is, the container, the holder, right? Mother Nurture, she holds those things to nurture them. Space and time. So you have to give yourself space and time. That's how you get through that emotional exile. Nurturing yourself, creating a space to nurture yourself. And your bank to do that is time. That's what's paying for all that time. Your time is paying for your space. So that was, I ate that. Okay. Okay.